You know, when you set your 4570 up for mild and then you go wild, you may need a new front sight. Hi, George here, and welcome to Tales from Target Suite, where I'll share my perspective on guns and shooting, and we'll spend some time at the range, and every now and then we're going to reconvene right out back in my shop, or at the farm in Louisiana where I'll build some fun projects, and we'll share an adventure or two that'll make even a grown man smile. You know, if you remember back a few weeks, I posted 2 videos about installing Skinner sights on this Winchester Miroku 1886 in 4570. And I adjusted the height of that front sight because it was way too tall. I adjusted it for the rounds that I was shooting back then, which were mild hand loads. Now, since then, I've had the opportunity, and you've seen that in more recent videos, to play with ammunition that has, let me just say, a lot more personality. And I found now that that front sight is too short for those hotter rounds. And so in today's video, I want to walk you through the process of installing a new front sight on this rifle. And we're going to get a little bit more up close and personal when it comes to fitting the dovetail of the sight to the dovetail slot on the rifle. And so I hope you'll stick with us. Now, before I start hammering, let me just say a couple of things here. Number one, if you'll stick around to the end of the video, I'm going to show you what leading in a barrel looks like, because you can actually see it here. I was able to capture some really good images, and I didn't know I had a leading problem until I cleaned this rifle after my last video shoot that I did a few weeks ago. And so I'm going to show you what that looks like. And then we're going to slug this barrel. And part of the reason, the original reason I wanted to slug the barrel was to show you the difference between what Microgroove rifling looks like and what the cut rifling looks like from this Winchester 4570. But since I've determined that I have a leading issue, I'll be able to take that slug and compare the outside diameter, the groove diameter, the major diameter of that slug with the diameter of my Acme bullets that I have used almost exclusively since I started shooting the 4570. And these Acme bullets have an outside diameter of 0.458 inches. And so we'll see if that's a good fit for this bore. And the second thing is, I want to say thanks to you for being part of my YouTube project. And it's been fun, but we started off kind of slow as far as subscribers and watch time, things like that matter to YouTube. But it looks like here in the last couple of months, the artificial intelligence has caught up with me. They know what kind of content I'm producing, and they're starting to recommend it to the right folks. And so things are starting to look up, and we're excited about that. And if you haven't already, speaking of artificial intelligence, you know, in every video I say that. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. But the reason we YouTubers say that is because it's an important part of helping the artificial intelligence know who we are, and it helps them fine-tune who to recommend to. And so that's why we always say that, you know, please hit subscribe. Speaking of interesting stuff, we do have some fun projects on the way, like the new old Marlin 1894. It actually came yesterday. I was able to go pick it up. I told you about that in my last video, that I had to send back the 1974 version of the Winchester Model 1894, too many numbers, I know. And I had since bought a new one on Gunbroker that was made in 1979. Well, I picked up that rifle yesterday, and I want to tell you, it's night and day difference. It's amazing how much better this 1979 version is than the 1974. And we're going to do a few videos on that. And there's another project that I'm really excited about. It's not going to work out like I originally planned, but they never do. But let me read you an email I got from Guinness World Records. Dear George, thank you for sending us details of your proposed record attempt for, I'll cover that later. And unfortunately, they say, After thoroughly reviewing your application with members of our research team, we are afraid to say that they don't need to be afraid, but we cannot accept your proposal as a Guinness World Record title. They're not saying something is already out there, because there's not. I've searched their database, and we are going to set a world record. It just won't be a Guinness World Record. Then they go on to say, while we certainly do not underestimate your proposal, we think it's a little too specialized for a body of reference as general as Guinness World Records. Well, yes, I was a little bummed that they weren't going to let me do this officially, but if you've watched any of the Guinness World Record stuff, you're probably like me. When you see what it is, you're wondering what was so special. What was so specialized about this? Because some of the things that people do, it's just amazing. But you're going to have to wait for the video to know what that's all about. It's going to be fun nonetheless. And then the third thing, there are a lot of opinions out there about this, and it is, which way do sights come out of a dovetail slot on a rifle? And I can tell you, if you look to the internet for an answer, you're going to be confused and disappointed, because there are very strong opinions that say it's always this way or it's always that way. But I can tell you that from my experience with this rifle, and also with the Marlin 1894 that I worked on last week, that the sights go from left to right from the shooter's perspective. Now, how other rifles and handguns work, I'm not sure, but I can tell you, this one and the Marlin from last week, they come out from left to right. And additionally, if you've looked at any of Larry Potterfield's videos from Midway USA, his gunsmithing videos, they're really neat videos. And he has said more than once that dovetail sights come out from left to right, from the shooter's perspective. So I'm just telling you what my experience is and what Larry Potterfield says. So let's get back to hammering, and I'll get this sight out, and then we'll start filing on that new one and get it to fit in there just right. But I need to get the camera set up in a different way to do that. So let's get started. Okay, there's the original. Now the secret to being able to do this well is to have a triangular file with a safe side. And that safe side can be created with any kind of sandpaper, some really industrial sandpaper with a little water, wet and dry would work well, or you can use the side of your favorite whetstone. And what you're doing is just wanting to dull the teeth so that it won't file on that side of the file. Now, this is obviously too big. It will just barely get started. And so we're going to file on one side only, and I'm going to file here on the back side of this dovetail, and we're going to file on this surface right here, not this surface right here. We're just only going to cut right there. And so I'll put the safe side up against the bottom of the sight. Couple of strokes. And then we'll fit it. Okay, this is taking a lot more filing than the last one I got from Skinner, but it's starting to slip in there just a little bit. And so we're going to get it just a little bit farther, and then we're going to try to tap it in. Okay, this has taken a lot more than I expected. When I did the first sight here, it took very little filing. I think we've got it close enough now. I'm going to put a little bit of grease on here to prevent galling, and then we're going to see if we can tap it home without a whole lot of trouble. Okay, I'm going to call that a decent fit. It sure took a lot longer than the original. This one, when I cut this one, I only had to take a few strokes off to make it go in. And so just be prepared. Your installation could either be really fast, or it could take quite a few strokes. So, but regardless, just make sure you take a few strokes, then test fit, take a few more strokes and test fit. And so when you're filing, just make sure that you keep your file perpendicular to the site and not file an angle across there like that, but keep it perpendicular. And if you take a few strokes and fit, a few strokes and fit, you'll eventually get there. And I would call this one of those eventually things, because it took me probably, obviously I didn't put it all on camera, but it probably took me close to 10 minutes to get enough material off of that back side to get this to tap in. Now, let's slug this barrel. Before we slug this barrel, I did want to show you what the leading looks like. And I can't do it with video very well, but I can pop up some images here that will show what that lead looks like. Now, one of the things I hope to learn here from the slugging process is the barrel too big? Is the groove diameter too large? And are hot gases getting past the cast bullets, causing them to melt and lead the bore? I don't know, but we're going to find out here in just a minute. But as you can see, there's some pretty good gray streaks inside that barrel. And I hope there's a solution to that, because it makes cleaning the bore with traditional methods near onto impossible, because no matter how many patches you put through there, they still come up black because you're rubbing off minute amounts of that lead. And so we'll figure that one out, but not as a part of this video. Now let's get back to slugging this barrel. Okay, here we go. And we're going to slug the barrel here with a material called Cero True. It's not the prescribed slugging material. You can actually get that from Midway USA or Brownells. I believe it's called Cero Safe, and it's a different low temperature alloy, but it has properties that lend itself to this type of application. And I just so happen to have a bunch of Cero True, and I didn't want to buy any Cero Safe. And so we're going to knock that thing out of there. It really doesn't take much force. Even though this expands, it expands a very, very, very small amount. And so we're going to let this cool, let it do its expansion, and then we'll knock it out and we'll get it measured. Okay, we've got the slug in the barrel. The barrel's cooled off, the slug's cooled off. Now, let's get it tapped out of there, and we'll measure it and see what the major diameter is. And we'll look at it up close and see how it compares to the Microgroove slug that we pulled out a week ago. Well, what you can definitely see is that the Microgroove lands and grooves are about, I would say, in this case, about a third of the cut rifling, which is in this hand, the cut rifling of the Winchester 1886. I probably can't measure this, but it does seem like the lands and the grooves are cut deeper. In fact, I'm sure they are. The grooves are cut deeper in the cut rifling than they are in the Microgroove rifling. So let's measure this and see what dimension we come up with here. 0.4575 is the groove diameter, or the major diameter of the bore, and these bullets are sized at 458.458 inches, and so there's just a little bit of interference fit. I don't know what that means. We've got a major diameter here of 0.457 to 0.4575. And the bullets that I have actually measure right at 0.458. And so we've got a tiny bit of interference in this barrel. I don't know if that's good or bad. Let me know what you think in the comments. It's been another fun video. I hope it was helpful. We did get a new sight on here. It was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. And that's actually a good comparison, because the first sight went in way too easy, and the second one a little bit too hard. So somewhere in between should probably be a normal experience, would be what I guess. Now, next week, we're going to crack open the case. It's right here underneath my feet. Crack open the case of that Marlin 1894, the 1979 version. And we're going to take a look at that. It's going to be fun. That's one nice rifle. So hope to see you in next week's video. Until then, don't forget to subscribe.